Hey everybody, I am Tim Smith here at HP Discover 2018, and for this vBrownBag wanted to talk about replication and a successful DR plan. So one thing I've learned over the course of years and working with multiple customers is that replication is just a small portion of disaster recovery, and in fact sometimes replication can cause disasters. If you've ever watched this movie, you know replication did not help this gentleman at all. But replication is actually just a subset of disaster recovery. It's just a tool that we're using for our overall DR plan. Now that being said, my powers of Google let me know that Wikipedia says that disaster recovery is a set of policies, tools to enable the recovery or continuation of your vital technology, right? Whether that's a natural disaster that's occurred or something that's human-induced, you've got a problem. Replication is the tool of disaster recovery that's going to solve it. Now, just like replication is a portion of disaster recovery itself is actually a portion of something even better, which is business continuity. This is the ultimate goal of what you really want. You don't want just disaster recovery, you want business continuity. You want your business to be able to continue to operate after some sort of disaster has occurred, whether that's something large or small. It could be really just the application level that has crashed, just one major application. You need to have that continuity to continue on. So it might not be your entire site. Again, Wikipedia says it that the business continuity is planning, preparation to be able to overcome these incidents. And it contains a resilience, recovery, the disaster recovery we talked about, and also contingency. So again, what you thought you wanted was disaster recovery. What you really need is business continuity. So again, we talked about those three elements. Let's start with resilience. Some examples of resilience that you want to look at are things that are already built into the tools you have. You want to make your applications resilient, whether you've designed your application itself to be resilient, whether you're using something like SQL, always on availability groups, you've got that high availability of your databases. vSphere, sometimes vSphere HA, high availability, is enough for your applications. RAID erasure coding is another form of resilience. You've got that resilience at the data level, you've got your resilience at the hypervisor level, and you've got some resilience up in the application level. vSphere Metro Cluster is another great resilience because it's resilience across sites. So not only can you have the resilience of vSphere availability, RAID groups on your storage at one site, with that replicated storage to the other side, you've got that high availability between your sites with a Metro Cluster. On to the next portion, recovery. So we talked about resilience level recovery. This is where that replication had come in, disaster recovery portion. And there's a couple different types. So you can have array-based replication. Maybe you're going to be replicating your LUNs from one site to the other. Maybe you're replicating just specific VMs or files, things of that nature. VM replication, there's lots of great tools out there. vSphere replication, Veeam replication, some other things out there. Great ways to replicate. Maybe you're going to do something like log shipping. So you've got your SQL server, your database servers, you're just going to be shipping logs off to another database server at your offsite. That's another way to have that recoverability. And of course, backups. So maybe you've got your really high availability for your tier 0, tier 1 apps, but your tier 3 and 4 apps can utilize backups for your disaster recovery. So you're going to have backups, you're going to hopefully follow the 3-2-1 rule, 3 copies of your data, 2 different mediums, and one of those mediums off-site. So why not have disaster recovery just be restoring from backup for those lower tier applications? Last is contingency. So this is what you need if it all goes wrong. So your resilience didn't work, your recovery didn't work. You need to have a contingency plan. Maybe that's taking your offsite backups and restoring them all to public cloud. It's going to be super expensive to lift and shift all your applications that you need. Maybe you just do a handful that you need. But that's an option, right? You have that ability to restore up into the public cloud if need be. Paper records. Maybe not everything that you're doing digitally needs to be done digitally still during a disaster in order to continue on having that business continuity to keep that money coming in. Worst case, your contingency plan hopefully should not be updating your resume. But again, if it all goes wrong, if you lose your disaster recovery site at the same time that you lose your primary site, you have to fail back to a contingency plan. So, where do you start with all of this? Documentation. The best form of documentation to start with is a business impact analysis or a business impact assessment. So if you don't have this, usually if you have accounting firms and there's other consulting firms that will come in and do a business impact analysis for you. But what they end up doing is looking at the applications that are needed most to run your business. So maybe that's mail, maybe that's accounts payable, maybe that's accounts receivable, things of that. And what they're going to do is look at those applications, look at the dependencies on down the tree to see what is it required in your infrastructure that you use to be able to have that portion of your business running. This is great because when you come in and start replicating virtual machines or replicating LUNs or whatever you're doing for that disaster recovery portion, you can determine what it is you need to meet that requirement to have continuity for that application. Start one application at a time. Don't go full board and try to do 5, 6, 25 applications at the same time. If you're just starting on the path, find that one that you can do, preferably the one that you can do the easiest. Get that down so you have a nice plan to follow for the next applications to follow along. And document. Document everything. You're going to need a Runbook, and what you need to put in there is everything. So anything that you do, this is going to include everything that you're going to need. So if you're talking about Exchange, you're going to need application owners, you're going to need external DNS records, you're going to need public IPs, you're going to need to know to change those DNS records for the public IPs if you don't have multiple MX records set up. Maybe you're going to need circuit information for an MPLS line, site information, server room access, things of that. So it's not just about the application itself, but it's everything that's going to support that. RPO, RTO, another great thing to put in the Runbook for those applications. You want to make sure that you document, what is your recovery point objective? What is your recovery time objective? When it's in there and it's documented, when you do your testing or you do an actual event, you can look and see what you've actually gotten compared to what the goal is for that application. Of course, we want to document the recovery process. So if it's a matter of replicated virtual machines, what order do they come up in? What cluster do they need to come up in? What storage do they need to be restored back to? Those types of things. Make sure that you document a contingency plan in your Runbook as well. And of course, a protection plan. So one thing that I find is often overlooked during a disaster recovery planning is if you're going to be failing over to, let's say, you're off-site for a week, what are you going to do to protect your data at that off-site? Do you have backups set up? So make sure that when you're replicated, when you're failed over, that you are also backing up so you can continue to meet your RPOs of those applications. Test. Well, what do I need to test? Everything. So test your recovery. Test your testing. Test it live, test it in a sandbox. Use your Runbook for testing. Test your employees. Make sure that you can get access to the buildings. Make sure they know who to contact. All of those. And put your test results into your Runbook, into your documentation. Because there's nothing worse than going through a test 2 years later with a different team and not knowing what it is that they learned on their tests. So it's going to get fairly large, but make a Runbook for every application, include everything you possibly can in it, and you're going to have a successful disaster recovery, or you're going to ensure business continuity. Be sure to follow along. I blog over at tsmith.co and do some videos at V101 TV, and you can always find me on the Twitters at tsmith_co. Thank you.